What's up, everyone? GSmith624 here, and today I'll be talking about Overwatch, the new meta. And with the latest patch coming out, with all the nerfs and one buff to one hero, there's some interesting changes to the meta. So you may be wondering, what's the new meta? Let's talk about it today. Now, granted, this will be mostly for console users and not for PC users. And that's simply because I play on console, and that just seems to be the area I see the most in. I don't really watch as much as a PC area as other players do because I'm a console user. Granted, I am in the Master rank currently. The game is showing in the background I'm only Diamond, but I am in Masters. I almost was Grandmaster. But currently, let's talk about each section of hero and where they stand. Probably the easiest one to talk about is support. Support hasn't really changed up too much in the latest patch, although Ana has gotten a rather large nerf to her with her biotic grenade and her just her biotic grenade in general, getting that rather large decrease to it, only lasting 4 seconds and only having a 50% cooldown, or only healing 50% now instead of 100%. It's a rather large change. However, if you're looking at healers, for the most part, Lucio is always number one healer still. He was like the number one pick, especially on console. Then, the number two spot, honestly, gets tossed around between Ana, Mercy, and Zenyatta now. It really just depends on who your enemies are playing. So, for example, if you have triple tank, because it still is a thing, just not as strong, go with Zenyatta. If you're wanting that res, because it's still a very viable option, go Mercy. Or if you still want that nano boost and you want to try running triple tanks for yourself still, Ana is still a go-to choice. Because Ana still has the highest healing out of every hero, and paired up with Lucio is still a great combination. Now, next up, I'll go into tanks, because they seem the next viable option here, so to speak. And tanks are in an interesting spot now, especially in the console area. Because while you would expect Roadhog to be getting a nerf to him, or while you expect Roadhog to fall out of the meta a little bit, especially with his big nerf with Hook 2.1, it's actually kind of the opposite now. Because Roadhog is great at taking out D.Va again, whereas before, you had them in a one-on-one fight, D.Va would almost always win. But Roadhog gets a nice clean hook on D.Va. That's pretty much it for D.Va. She can't really take on a Roadhog one-on-one anymore. It's just not that viable of an option, which is kind of interesting. So, if any of the tanks really fell out, at least on console, and mind you, this is on console meta, not PC meta, Roadhog is still very much a viable pick as long as you can keep landing your hooks, because, well, especially now if you can keep landing your hooks, because where you pull your opponent is much fairer to the Roadhog. It will always be directly in front of you, so granted, as long as you don't do any crazy turns. So some of those heroes that always escaped you and wouldn't die in one shot, such as Ana, Mei, and Reaper, as long as you can land your hook, you are almost guaranteed the kill on them, which is really rather impressive. So Roadhog is not a bad pick. I still have seen him quite a bit in the higher up games. Not as much, granted, but he's still definitely up there. The main defense hero the main tank hero that has really fallen out is D.Va. And while you may be saying, oh, G-Smith, D.Va D.Va didn't really get nerfed that much. She's not that bad now. Well, yes and no. She is a little worse because certain heroes can actually do their job now against her, instead of where D.Va would always win one-on-one fights with these heroes that she shouldn't be winning. For example, against a Reaper. Reaper and Roadhog will both smoke a D.Va now. Unless you are, like if we're saying, like, roughly same skill level, Reaper and Roadhog should almost always win a one-on-one fight with D.Va. Because D.Va, while she is a tank, she is not just a bullet sponge like her OP old self was. She is now a very, probably like a very wishy-washy hero. Well, no, wishy-washy isn't really right. She's still a tank, but she can't just be sitting out there for days taking on heroes and enemies galore and just taking it like a champ, even with an Ana healing her in the back, pocketing her. It just can't happen anymore. So that leads us to our third position, which is the defensive category. The defensive category hasn't changed up too much, other than really the only one I can really say that's fallen out of the defensive category a little bit is Junkrat. Junkrat is falling out a little more because his huge targets, there aren't as many anymore, so he can't just grenade spam for days and get all of the kills that he needs. It just doesn't happen anymore. He only can do so much against smaller targets. If he can land his shots really well, Junkrat is still a good choice. And on console, he's still a good choice. But for the most part, your defensive heroes that will still get the job done are mostly Mei and Hanzo. Those are really the two big defensive heroes that are still viable options in the higher ranked games in console anyway. Widowmaker is an option, but if you can't get headshots with her, you should not be playing her in the higher ranked games because you'll just get smoked. And Torb, even though the one of the top 500 on console, I think he's ranked 24 right now, is a Torbjorn main. I do not recommend Torb in the higher tier play, because while his gun does have a decent damage to it, his turret is much weaker than his PC counterpart. So his turret really isn't going to be taking enemies out for days on end. And Bastion, well, it's just Bastion. He's very situational, but not really that great of an option, really. Sorry, Bastion. Sorry to break it to you, bud. But more surprisingly, the heroes. Let's go to the final category here. That's the one I left untouched. Mostly the reason I left it untouched is due to the fact that these characters are the ones that probably have gotten the most change with DPS. So DPS characters, while there is Soldier is probably the god of DPS currently still, especially with attack visor and all of that. Soldier's probably like the big dad of DPS. There's really not much you can do against him. He is rather strong, but he's not overly powered anymore because he doesn't have such huge targets to just spray his bullets into and have to worry about aim as much anymore. So McCree, if you can land your shots, is actually more so a viable option than Soldier is again. Mostly because there are a lot more squishies and his shots are a lot more reliable than Soldier's spray unless he's bursting. Now, another interesting thing, if Soldier is the king of the DPS, then Pharah is definitely the queen. Because Pharah is so goddamn hard to take out now on console. Well, not so goddamn hard, but is much harder to take out on console now, and is much more viable pick because there's squishies again instead of just 3 to 4 tanks. So Pharah being in the sky while not impossible to take out, really, she's not impossible at all to take out. She's still fairly easy to take out if you know how to aim and all of that. And you are like a hit scan hero or a Roadhog or a Zen well-placed Zen can take her out. But for the most part, Pharah can get into the skies and just cause havoc for the enemy team because of how much damage she does and how high she can get into the air now, because the fall off on McCree's gun combined with her being so high in the air just doesn't add up to enough damage, especially if she has a Mercy pocketing her. Now, another interesting hero that has fallen out of the meta for a while is Genji. I would definitely say Genji is back and raring to go with his Dragon Blade. He is fully prepared to fuck people up with that Dragon Blade and is not afraid to use it. Genji and in turn Winston are both more viable picks because of all of the squishies. Winston more so because he can hop in there, put his bubble down, start zapping those squishies like a Lucio or a Tracer and Genji, and just zap them while Genji can get behind, hop his ult, and get the healers. And then, probably the most interesting hero, because Tracer is fine in the meta now. Genji and Tracer are probably two of the most balanced heroes, at least on console, with Reaper being a rather strong pick as well, especially if the enemy's still trying to run triple tank. But the interesting one, where I'm still trying to decide where she's at, would be Sombra. Because Sombra, with her buff, actually can get her hack off a lot more often than you think she can. Because with only an 8-second cooldown and a 0.8-second hack time instead of a 1-second hack time, it doesn't seem like that much, but that difference, literally, if you get the drop on an enemy, is the difference between their Reinhardt having his shield up and that Reinhardt being hacked. So, Sombra is definitely actually a viable option now, but she already was a viable option, but she's definitely more so a viable option than she used to be because of her buffs and the nerfs to all the tanks. However, her damage still is not fully cutting it. But I would love to hear what you guys think in the comment section below before we continue. But now let's hop into the team stacks. So, like I said earlier, the tank meta is weakened but not gone. It is still a valuable option if instead of a D.Va, you go a Reinhardt, a Roadhog, and a Zenyatta, or a Zarya, or a Winston. Because Zarya and Reinhardt did not get any buffs or debuffs, so they're still their same selves and still doing perfectly fine. D.Va has some trouble with Zarya now, even more trouble with Zarya, especially if Zarya gets charged because she can just melt D.Va even faster now. So, Zarya, Reinhardt, and Winston all still viable picks. So, 3-2-1 combination is still a viable pick. However, you don't have to pick Soldier as your DPS anymore. And it might be even more viable now to pick Reaper because he can actually handle tanks again. So, there's that. And another meta that works fairly well, there's two different ones. There's just the regular 2-2-2, which works fairly well, where you just have 2 attacks, 2 defenders, usually a or 2 defense, usually a Reinhardt and like a Zarya or something, and then 2 healers, which is usually a Lucio and a Mercy, or a Lucio and an Ana, and it works relatively well. However, one that kind of surprised me that made a comeback, at least, I don't know if it surprised other people, but Dive Comp actually is a viable option again, where you have a Zarya, a Genji, or a Tracer, and they just dive in there, get the bubble with a Zenyatta healing them, and then get out of there. It's a pretty viable option. It works really well, actually, so Dive Comp is a dangerous duo, especially if you're going for those tanks. However, I would recommend Tracer more so than Genji if you're going to try Dive Comp, just so that way Tracer can recall out of there after she kills one of their elite healers. But yeah, that's pretty much the whole video. I would love to hear what you guys think in the the comment section below. Please tell me if you agree with my ideas. This is just from what I've seen in the high tier areas, not top 500, but close to top 500 areas of console Overwatch. Remember, this is the console area meta I'm talking about, not PC. PC will be different because there are different characters that are affected differently, and aim is different on there as well. So, I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comment section below. And I've been your host, GSmith624, and I'll see you all in the next episode, guys. Farewell and have a nice day.